you so much for joining us. I'm Meg Winikates, Director of Engagement for NEMA. And while we're waiting for everybody to filter in from the waiting room, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat, that would be fabulous. Just as a heads up to everyone as we're starting, we have got the closed captioning available if you need it. You can hit the button on the bottom of your screen to turn it on. Also, we are planning on recording this. So if you do not want your face recorded, please feel free to leave your camera off. Otherwise, we are planning on recording this for folks who couldn't make this morning's info session. So we encourage you to turn your camera on because we love seeing your lovely faces, particularly if you have any questions to ask, but don't feel obligated. All right, so I'm going to be starting the recording now. And again, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat.
Meg, I already hit the record button earlier.
Great, thank you. All right, and Sue, would you like to go ahead and kick things off?
Sure. So welcome. I'm Sue Gagnon. I'm the president of the NEMA board. I'm also the director of Historic Beverly in Beverly, Massachusetts. I'm delighted to welcome you all, excuse me, here this morning to talk about serving on the NEMA board. And I'm just going to give a very brief introduction, and then we have lots to talk about, and we've left time for questions and or comments or sharing experiences. So I hope that you will do that. So why would you serve on the NEMA board or another board? Well, the first is because you can have an impact on the field, right? And we all know of things that we think we could do better than the way they're being currently done. And if you serve on a board, you are more likely to have an opportunity to actually have an impact in that way. Your voice will be heard by more people. You can participate in strategy in terms of the museum world. And so that's kind of the big picture reason why you might want to do it. You learn from others, and you also share your knowledge so they learn from you. And I have learned so much from serving on this board because I am with people whose museum experiences are vastly different than mine. And that's been really helpful to me. You give back to your community, your museum community, and the broader community as well, the broader cultural community as well. And I think everybody has an obligation to do that in some way. You expand your network, no small thing, right? That's always really important. You meet people in various parts of the museum field, in various parts of the country, and even outside of the United States. And those networks can be really important for you and for your institution. You develop leadership skills, another important aspect that we all need to work on, because there are times, hopefully, when we will be the leader. And so it's helpful to be able to build those skills. There is a commitment that's required, and it's important to acknowledge that. And you need to think about that if you're willing to make that commitment. In the case of NEMA, it's largely a commitment of time, because if you're going to serve on any board, you need to take that seriously. You need to learn whatever materials are available to you. You need to read the materials. You need to think carefully about things. You need to participate in board meetings and at events like the conference. So think about whether that's something that you want to do and that you can do, because it doesn't benefit anybody, particularly you, if you go into something without being able to make that commitment. And the most important reason, I think, is to do something that matters, to support something that matters. I suspect that most of us have our jobs because we think we make a difference, that we are preserving history, that we are sharing art, that we are exposing people to experiences that they wouldn't otherwise have. And that makes our jobs and our lives meaningful. And serving on a board like NEMA gives you another way to do that. And for me, that has always been and will always be the most important reason that I have the job that I have and that I participate in this board, because I think it makes a difference and I think it matters. And I need that in my life. That's important to me, to be able to have that kind of satisfaction. So I will end there. I will just say, if we could just have a very quick introduction of the other NEMA board members that are here at the moment. If you could just wave so everybody knows who you are. We have Brenda and Brooke and Matt and now Pilar, and now I'm off my page. Who else is here?
Herb.
Herb. Anybody? Who else did I miss? That's it? Okay. Thank you all for being on the call. They're all a resource to you as well. And welcome again. And I will turn it over to the next person on schedule.
Hi, everybody. I think that is me. So I'm Karla Guerrero, and I'm currently the Director of Development at the House of Seven Gables, and I'm a Vice President on the NEMA board currently. So I thought I was asked to talk about my experience on the board and really why I was inspired to join the board. So I'll start with my very first NEMA conference, which was back in 2004. I think it was in Hartford. And I was very much sort of in the early stages of my career at that point, and I had actually just been laid off. So it was a great way to like feel connected and be a part of the greater museum field and community. And then from there in 2009, I actually inherited from a colleague of mine at the time, the position of chair for the Historic Sites Management PAG. And I loved it. It was something I did for about 3 years. I had a great time creating all the workshops. I think my favorite one was called I Do, I Don't Functions at Historic House Museums. So that was really funny and fun, a great session. And then from there in 2012, I really was at a point in my career where I felt very middle management. I wasn't able to move up in my position at that organization. So I was sort of expanding out instead of going this way. And I really thought I at that time I was really wanting to do more, be more involved, and was excited by the opportunity to become a board member, and am grateful ever since for being selected to do that. It was interesting when I started the board because I found that a lot of the people at the time were mostly executive directors. And so I thought in some ways I could bring a different perspective because I was kind of in the middle. I was, very sort of visitor services, historic sites focused, programming. So I'm hopeful that I was adding to the variety of the board members and composition and learned so much from everyone with more experience than I had. And just felt really, like Sue was saying, I felt like I had a voice, and it's been really rewarding. I'm finishing up my 9th year on the board, so I'm done in November and sad to go. But it's been such a rewarding experience. And it's really taken me out of my job specific bubble. We get in these bubbles, we don't look outward, and it's really forced me to become more involved in the museum field as a whole, look at it more holistically, widen my network. And I would say since 2009, I have attended all conferences except one, and then I've been speaking at every conference except maybe 2. So it's also forced me to grow professionally. It's forced me to be better with public speaking. And it has really, it's something I'm really proud of and have been really happy to be a part of. Within my time on the board, I have been part of the membership committee. I'm currently the chair. There's a new development task force that I've been a part of. I was on the nominating committee. I have been on the advocacy committee, and again, learning these different things have been great. So right now, as I mentioned, I'm the director of development, and what NEMA gave me 9 years ago, starting, was my first sort of board experience. So as I have progressed in my career, I'm now in my 3rd job since I started with the board. I now work with boards all the time and work very closely. Have a board member on the call right now. Hi, Irene. So it's just been a really great learning experience for me, and I have felt that I've been able to contribute to NEMA and will certainly continue to do so beyond my board service. So I can hand it over to Matt or Brenda at that point.
Sure, I'll go. Good morning, everyone. This is Matt Kirkman. My independent museum consultancy is called Object Idea. We're located in Salem, Massachusetts, and we do interpretive master planning, museum development, museum planning, exhibition development and design. I came to NEMA way back in 1993 when I actually relocated from the Midwest to New England, settled in Somerville, and I've been attending the NEMA conference ever since I arrived. And I came to New England to work at a very large design agency right in downtown Boston. It was probably one of the largest in the country. It was 52 people big. It's hard to imagine a design firm solely focused on museum exhibition planning and design that's 52 people, because that's an animal that almost doesn't exist anymore. But it was an extremely absorptive time for me. I was new to the field in some respects. I came out of the Shed Aquarium in Chicago, but I was new to the field, and found a home and a community through NEMA. And so that large firm eventually became a small firm. And after gosh, 8 years or so, I ventured out on my own as an independent consultant, more like 10 years. But it was at that time that I felt, gosh, NEMA could really help support me as an independent museum professional. I've been speaking at the conference and attending the conference pretty consistently. I didn't fact check that, but I haven't missed a year in a very, very long time. And speak pretty consistently as well. I'm in the program fairly regularly, and that offers benefits to me as well. As an independent museum professional, as a consultant for planning and design, I found a home in the IMP community, the Independent Museum Professionals community within NEMA, and within the structure of the professional affinity groups called PAGs. You can see there's a link there in the chat group to NEMA's current PAG list. I quickly became a PAG co-chair with Camille. Wave, Camille. She's got the blue sky behind her. Camille and I were your exhibition PAGs. Gosh, what was that? 5-7 years ago, something like that. Long time ago. Anyway, it was through that process, I got kind of behind the curtain of how NEMA operated, and was plugged into behind the scenes at NEMA, and felt the sense of comfort and calling to serve on the board. I can't even remember who nominated me. There was an outside nomination process where I was nominated, and I accepted that nomination. My story and my relationship to NEMA sounds an awful lot like Pilar's. I get all of that similar support for my business and my own practice, but I also feel a strong sense of contribution when I serve on the committees and task forces within NEMA. Specifically nominating committee, I was the chair last year. Let's see if I wanted to say anything else. That might be it for now. I'm always available for questions. I'll pass it off to Brenda.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brenda Money. I'm the Senior Director of the Museum Experience at the Discovery Museum in Acton. It's a children's museum in a Boston suburb. My time in the museum field has happened after an extensive amount of time in research at a research lab. And so I transitioned from doing science to talking about science in a large science museum, and then moved from there into an academic university museum, and then to where I am at the Children's Museum. And it all makes sense if you know the details of the story. But for me, being part of the NEMA board has been a really wonderful opportunity to get to meet folks in the New England museum world who are not in the sort of niche groups of science museums, academic museums, and children's museums. The NEMA membership is actually filled with many other types of museums. And so it's been fantastic to get to meet people from these other museum fields and to learn about their organizations, large, small, all sorts of foci, and to really get to learn about the diversity that we have in the organization in NEMA. So for me, it's really been an opportunity, and I've been on the board now, I think a little over 3 years, maybe 4 years. It's really been an opportunity to network, for sure, to broaden my own horizons in terms of what a museum or a museum-like organization can be and can do. It's also been pretty wonderful to be able to have behind the scenes sort of knowledge and encourage my staff and colleagues to look forward to NEMA programs, to opportunities that are coming, not only to participate, but also to lead some of these things, right? So to help my colleagues share their voices in a bigger platform, a wider platform. It's definitely been a fantastic growth opportunity. Right now, I chair the nominating committee, and I've been on the governance committee for a couple of years. There, as Matt and Pilar have talked about, there are many opportunities to sort of learn about what's going on, to take a leadership role, to sort of help our museum field grow in New England. As Sue noted, if you can commit to a good amount of time, to really have your voice heard and to support the board in its work. This is a fantastic opportunity, and I hope you'll all consider applying. So now I'm going to have everybody look over at Brooke Evans, DiGiovanni, who's going to talk about expectations for the board.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you all. Thank you for coming. So I am going to share my screen and just talk about sort of the logistics of being on the board. And this is actually my first term on the board. So any folks who have been on longer than me, if I say something wrong, please jump in and correct me. All right. So can everybody see that?
Okay.
Awesome. Just gonna move around my screen. Okay, great. So what we wanted to share with you today is just an opportunity to know kind of what the expectations are and the application information, kind of going off of what Sue had mentioned earlier. When you join the board, kind of what we hope you'll do as a board member. So to start, a little bit about the board terms and committees. So each board term is a 3-year term of service, and you can renew for up to 3 times. There are 4 standing committees. So the executive committee is made up of the president, the vice president, the secretary, and the clerk, and they are the leadership of the board. We have a governance and ethics committee, which is responsible for engaging the board through board cultivation, development, education, assessment. They do a survey of board members' experience at the end of each year. They also periodically review board documents and update those. The Audit and Finance Committee is focused on reviewing fiscal policy and implementing and developing the operating budget, helping the staff to monitor that. They also have oversight of the audit process. And the Nominating Committee, which is the committee that most of us on this call are on today, is in charge of exactly what it sounds like, nominating new members to the board. So we welcome all the applications that people send in and review those, and then make a recommendation to the board about which positions should be filled and who should be filling them. There are also a couple of sort of ad hoc committees and sometimes task forces pop up. So the ones that are happening right now are an advocacy committee. So focusing on both regional and New England advocacy efforts for museums within the government, working very closely with the NEMA staff on that, and also participating in AAM's National Advocacy Day that happens in February. The Membership Committee, which advises NEMA staff on strategies for improving value and vitality for the NEMA membership. And the Development Committee that Pilar just mentioned, which focuses on working with the staff on fundraising efforts. So when you join the board, you will become part of one of these committees, and that decision process is based somewhat on your experience as well as kind of the area that you're interested in as well. So that is kind of the team that you're going to be working with, in addition to the full board. And then these are the meeting expectations. So we have 5 board meetings a year. They are generally about half-day meetings. We do them on Zoom now. Hopefully someday we'll get to all meet in person again. And they generally take place in December, March, June, and September. And then the November one is during the annual meeting at the conference. There are occasionally board retreats, generally not more than once per year, but those are part of the schedule as well. Also attending events at the conference, there is the annual meeting at the conference, and then there is professional and affinity group and board breakfast. Again, when the conference is in person, again, someday. And generally as sort of an expectation, just think about sort of reserving 5 hours of board work per month to attend meetings, to do any, quote unquote homework you get from your committees, any readings. And we also have just embarked on a diversity, equity, inclusion, access, and social justice training curriculum. And so that is part of that time as well that, that everybody is committing to the board. There are some financial expectations, as with any board. The hope is that you will maintain an individual membership with NEMA. That's really important. Also, if applicable, if you're working for an institution, see if your institution can maintain an institutional membership. And then in addition to that membership, your individual one, making a personal financial commitment to NEMA, as it says, appropriate to your circumstances. So there isn't a set amount that NEMA asks that you contribute, so that is really up to you. But the hope is to, like with any board, to have 100% board contributions and commitment to the organization. We also, as board members, are asked to help identify future board members. So something always to be on the lookout, whether you're at a conference or at a webinar or interacting with other colleagues in the field, just thinking about who might be a good future member of the board. And the board is working really hard to diversify its board composition. So seeking diversification within race and gender, ethnicity, age, museum role, and also good representation across the New England region. Then last is just some volunteer expectations. And Sue mentioned a few of these in the opening. So the first is to assist with the annual conference. That is obviously a huge event and a lot of work for the NEMA staff. So as much as we can help as board members is great, to take some of the work off of their shoulders. So that can include volunteering for the conference as a conference ambassador, helping to get program sponsorships for the conference, also submitting your own sessions and programming ideas for the conference. In addition to conference expectations, the hope is that board members will really share their expertise. So helping to plan or organize any workshops throughout the year in the various numerous ones that the NEMA staff works on for all of our benefit. So however you can help to share your expertise to plan those is great. To submit articles and information for publication in the New England Museums Now regular newsletter, to participate in advocacy efforts. So even if you're not on the advocacy team, thinking about how to advocate for museums within your particular state and particular area. And then to share any expertise and experience with a NEMA membership upon request and respond to any inquiries from NEMA members. Also to, if applicable, again, if you're working within a museum, to enlist your museum in NEMA's efforts. So thinking about registering your museum to participate in NEMA's museum admission program, offering free or discounted admission to NEMA members. Occasionally there's a call for policies and documents for NEMA's museum document exchange. It's really helpful to have examples from across the region to share. So if your museum can be a part of that, that's great. And then the last two, partnering with NEMA staff on fundraising goals and any development efforts that are requested. So last year, each of us sort of reached out to 4 or 5 different museums and asked them or encouraged them to continue their membership and their institutional membership. So that could be a call that you might get. And then, as I mentioned, participating in the diversity, equity, access, inclusion, and social justice training that the museum has, or that NEMA has just embarked on, and we see is definitely sort of an ongoing process, because it's something that we continually need to work on. So there is some training and implementation with that. So then my final slide is the board application process. So we are working on the application now, and it'll be available on May 3rd on the NEMA website. And you'll have about a month to fill it out. It'll be due back on June 4th. There are 4 different components for applying this year. So there's going to be the application, which has some basic general information, like tell us your name and where you work, or if you're a consultant, kind of what you do. And then some questions to answer, just so we can get to know a little bit more about you and your experience and your focus. Then including your resume, as well as 3 references with some contact information. And then this year, in addition, we'll be doing, the nominating committee will be doing some brief interviews with applicants. So once again, the NEMA staff and the NEMA board is really seeking to diversify the board composition. And so we would love to just welcome a whole range of applicants to join us. So I am going to stop sharing. And I'm going to bounce it over to Herb, who is our other board member, so he can say a few words, our most recent board member, about joining the organization. So thank you everyone for listening to my slideshow.
Good morning, everybody. So as Brooke said, I am the newest board member that's here on the call today. Just beginning my first term. I recently retired from a long term at the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston, and was really excited to be invited to be a part of the NEMA board. I've attended NEMA conferences for probably about 8 years now, and have presented in sessions in probably at least 3 or 4 of those years. I just feel like museums get it right in the way that we tell, in that we try to tell stories. And so to be a part of NEMA, where we kind of help to facilitate that and to encourage that among our members, I thought would be a great opportunity, and to share from my many years of experience at the MFA or in the museum field, period. So it's been exciting to be a part of getting to learn the people on the board, and to really I think as Matt said, get behind the curtain and see how an organization like NEMA really works to encourage the field and broaden the field and to make it more relevant in these particularly changing times. So I hope that all of you are interested and that you tell others about the opportunity, and we look forward to welcoming some of you on the board next year.
Thanks, Herb. I would just, before we jump to questions, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the NEMA staff, who the board works with a lot and are amazing. So that is another perk for working on the board. So I think now we have time for questions. We put quite a bit of time because we wanted to make sure we had a chance to answer any thoughts or questions that you had. So anyone who wants to jump in or you want to put your question in the chat, let us know what you think.
I'll also add that if you have a question, but for whatever reason you don't feel comfortable asking it in this forum, please feel free to get in touch with any individual board member because they'd be happy to talk to you.
Come on, people.
Someone has to go first. I'll do it. Then everybody else can break the ice after that. I'm just curious about the change to the application process. If you can talk a little bit about what is motivating the board to move in that direction. It seems very thorough, and I think that's great, but it's also, it seems to me, a very significant change from how it's been in the last couple of years. So I was just curious about the motivation behind that and what you're hoping it does to help you build the board that you want to have.
Hi, Chuck. It's Brenda. Thanks for your question. It's a really good one. I guess, so I'm going to at least start an answer as chair of the nominating committee. So we've been working on this for a while and have recognized that, in order to kind of push more on being able to diversify the board and have folks who apply understand the full commitment that is required, we needed to ask a little bit more of our applicants so that we understood a bit more about folks when they were applying. Brooke laid out all the expectations for members of the board, and being part of the board is pretty wonderful, but it is a working board. And so, people who want to be on the board should understand, right, that there's a decent commitment asked of them in order to advance the goals of the organization through the board. And so we also wanted to understand if folks who interested in the board sort of were thinking along the lines of the current vision for the board, our, strategic goals. Also for us to understand the particular skills that people have, the knowledge, the lived experience, work experience that people could contribute to the board so that we could better assess how to expand the board in the best way to achieve the goals we're looking for going forward. So we really needed to have more than sort of interest in a resume. And so that's why we've added in a couple of short answer questions.
Yeah, I think that's great, Brenda. Thank you. I would also add that people can recommend people to the board if you want. So that is another form that will be up on the website. So if you feel like board work is not for you, but you know someone who would be fantastic, that's another opportunity to get involved and to recommend people join the board.
Just please tell them you're doing that if you do.
Yes. Good point, Sue.
That's a perfect lead into the question that I had. I'm interested in serving on the NEMA board at some point, but definitely not this year. I'm on another board, about to be confirmed onto another board in addition to that, and I'm a PAG co-chair, and my book is coming out this fall, so it's not the year for me. But especially because I have done nominating committee things with other groups, I'm interested to know whether the process includes identifying kind of what your existing gaps are in terms of skills diversity and background diversity, and whether you have specific areas in mind this year that you're hoping to fill in terms of thinking about who else might be a good fit, and also in terms of, you know, should I apply when it's most convenient for me in terms of time, or when it's a year that the niches that I fill would be particularly useful in terms of composition.
Hi, Tegan. That's a great question as well. So I think first off, I think for anyone, you want to apply only when it is best for you, because right, like it really has to be ideal for you. Otherwise, you know, you'll be unhappy not being able to participate well, and the board will suffer from not having, you know, your full participation. So that's definitely, from my point of view, number one, whether you yourself can do it. I think every year we have a look at the board. We have a, you know, the board every year does sort of a self-survey. So we're regularly assessing like where our strengths are, where we might have gaps, and then, you know, looking forward to see if, you know, we might have applicants in the upcoming year who could strengthen the board in particular ways. So it's constantly evolving.
And I think that in my multi-part question, I may not have been clear that I'm also interested, are there specific things that you've identified this year for those of us who might be thinking of what colleagues we might want to nudge in a board direction?
Sure. Well, so Brooke did point out, like, we're always looking to diversify the board in terms of race and ethnicity and gender. We have to have representation from all of the New England states. We are, I think, always on that, but encourage applicants from all across New England. We are, you know, we've embarked on our DEAIJ work and recognize that the more internal knowledge we have, the better for the board. So that's another place where we're looking for applicants with experience.
Brenda, can I put you on the spot for just one more little tidbit? Will it, as part of that application, as part of that call for applications that will come out, what Brooke, you said in May, right? May 4th. Will there be any statement of need as part of that? I think that's what Tegan's getting at.
I don't think we're planning to put a specific statement out beyond, you know, sort of the details that Brooke has noted, because again, you know, we have to look at the full board, right? And we look at the applicants that come through. So I think there's always, you know, people will have strengths in multiple areas. And I think that all has to be considered, right? The whole applicant and application rather than any, and, you know, sort of narrowing out to like a particular need. So I really feel it's, you know, sort of for the whole applicant is what we want to be looking for, and and just trying to, you know, yeah, I don't want to limit people from applying if they have interest, because I think, you know, we also have the ability to message directly with people who have, you know, interest, to say like, well, you know, the makeup of the board right now is such, but we hope, you know, you'll want to continue to work with us in these other ways, and perhaps, you know, we might have these other opportunities. So I would hate to sort of close the conversation.
Yeah, and I think something that Chuck said and something that Tegan said, there's both of those get at the idea of cultivation. You know, the idea of, if you express interest and it might not be the right time for you, that doesn't mean, if it's not the right time for you, it doesn't mean it's not the right time for you to express interest. If it's not the right time for you to serve, that doesn't mean, you know, you may not want to express interest, so that you can remain involved. There's many ways to be involved with NEMA that are good launching pads to board service. So I would just, you know, say that we've always got our eyes as a board, we've always got our eyes on who's expressing interest and when might they most ideally plug in. So taking the idea of saying, I really want to serve, but now's not the right time for me, that's really valuable information for the board to consider. That's one of the reasons why the application process has been kind of strengthened and have some rigor behind it, is the idea. I'm speaking as last year's nomination chair. The idea of cultivation and keeping our finger on the pulse of who's expressed interest and the timing of their service was also one of the reasons why the application process evolved to the way that it is.
And I just want to pass on, because it follows to what Matt says. We have a question in the chat from Maggie, who says, apologies for not joining via video. Here's my question. What would you recommend in advance of board membership in terms of being more involved in NEMA and gaining knowledge of the organization, especially if your field, for me, digital media and visual documentation, aren't as represented in existing PAGs and webinars?
Well, that sounds like exactly the sort of thing I'm supposed to be talking about right at the end. So I can do that now while other people are thinking of their questions, if you want me to do that, Brooke, or we can hold that question till the end. No, now is good. Okay.
Sure, yeah, go for it.
All right, awesome. So hi there again, as I'm Meg, Director of Engagement for NEMA. And so my job is to tell you there are lots of ways you can get involved if you feel like now is not the right time for board service, or you want a little more experience with the organization before you apply or whatever else. And so there are a number of avenues, Maggie specifically referring to existing PAGs and programming. The easiest answer is, if you see a hole that you feel like needs filling, step up and do it. So if you feel like there is a possible role for you as a PAG chair for a PAG that doesn't exist yet, awesome. I want to hear all about it. If you feel like there's programming that needs to happen in your area that we aren't filling, then tell me all about it and who I should be talking to make that program happen. So as Director of Engagement, I oversee things like the conference program and our Lunch with NEMA series, and in general kind of town halls and workshops, et cetera. I work closely with all the professional affiliation gathering chairs to work on our workshop series and other PAG programs. I also am co-editor with Heather of New England Museums Now, our thrice yearly professional journal. So there are a lot of opportunities for being able to get involved. Scarlett very helpfully just dropped both my email and the call for submissions for the journal in the chat. Thank you, Scarlett, you're the link queen. And so we have calls for submissions out right now for 2 of our upcoming journals. One's about to come out, so don't submit anything for, the journal that's coming out like next week. But for this summer and also this fall, our upcoming themes are essentially a kind of project showcase where we recognize it's been an incredibly tough year for everyone in the field, and we would like to give everyone a chance to brag about the things that they've managed to accomplish in that year, regardless of all of the crazy. So it's essentially a museum show off kind of issue. And then in the fall, we're focusing on the many ways in which museum issues intersect with the issues of climate change. So if you have anything you want to talk about that has to do with education, facilities, measuring your own institution's environmental impact, climate advocacy, whatever else, that's what we want to hear about for the fall issue. We are also open to things which are off theme. So if there's just something you really feel like people need to know about, or you have expertise in that you want to get to share, you can always pitch an article to me, because we have plenty of room in our journal for things that are not theme based. So as a working as a PAG chair, and we do have a couple of current PAG chairs on the line today. So if you want to speak up to anything I'm saying, please feel free to jump in. The major expectations are that you create some set of programming during the year. Usually it falls into something that happens in conference, like a PAG lunch or an offsite session, and then 1 or more things that happen at other points during the year, a workshop, a set of town halls, networking events, et cetera. It tends to vary a little what kind of programming you generate depending on what kind of an affiliation gathering you're talking about. The young and emerging professionals and the independent museum professionals tend to gravitate towards doing more networking events. Other groups do more workshops, others do more kind of town hall, peer-to-peer counseling and mentoring style events. And we're really very open to any of that that works. And yeah, and then regarding conference and other volunteering opportunities, you do not have to be a PAG chair or a board member to get involved with some of the inner workings of conference and other things. So for instance, we are looking at potentially putting together an advocacy advisory council that would work with me and the advocacy board committee to think about what we would want to be doing in future and to help plan future events. We also have regular spots for helping us doing things like reading session proposals for conference. So if you would be interested in being part of the session proposal reading team and help us figure out what the conference program will look like for this year, let me know, because we're looking for volunteers for that as well. And that's, again, a group of staff and board and PAGs and just interested members who help us put that together. And there are other similar things like that as well. In other years, we're not running the publication awards this year, but that's another way to get involved, or helping us with reading scholarship applications and that sort of thing too. So there are a lot of ways to get involved. And I think the best way, if you're not interested in board service or you don't feel like it's the right time, but you want to stay connected, would be to just reach out to someone on staff and say, hey, how can I help? You know, here's what I'm interested in. What can I do? And we will help you find a way, because certainly the four of us work very hard and we appreciate all of the support from the board, but even the staff and the board need more help than that. So we could not run without all of our great volunteers. Heather, Scarlett, Dan, anything else I've forgotten that you want to jump in?
The other thing is just showing up. That's a big thing too. You know, a lot of the board service, PAG service is just, we start to know people that we see all the time or hear from all the time. So that's another way as well. It's just participating is a big thing.
And as a purely selfish kind of, to tie back to how I started here, you all know that many jobs in the museum field never really see the light of day, right? Somebody gets a job because somebody knew them, they met them at a particular time. And so that networking aspect through participating in NEMA, excuse me, NEMA events can have a great benefit for you too. So Camille had a question. I'm curious how COVID is impacting membership numbers. I'm particularly interested in working with the tiniest museums, thank you, and getting a new generation of memberships with resources just for them. What an interesting question.
So if I could jump in, and Camille, maybe can you clarify? I'm assuming that you're talking about NEMA membership numbers, not membership numbers across the board, correct?
Yeah, I'm curious whether that's whether you're anticipating a new push of and sort of rethinking memberships for the post-COVID museum reality.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I guess the quick answer, and Scarlett, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Scarlett handles our membership and the details of them. But in general terms, we've been very pleasantly surprised, I guess, that our membership numbers have remained relatively stable, and specifically our institutional memberships have remained somewhat stable, and that's a good thing. We've only dipped a little bit. And that shows that, you know, I think that people still value what we're doing, and we are, you know, creating the programs that really help them continue along. Our individual memberships, of course, have taken a hit because museums have laid off so much of their staff. And so as a result, a big chunk of our membership growth over the course of the years has been, you know, our affiliate memberships of employees of museums that are institutional members. That being said, one of the things that we did a number of years ago, which I'm sure you're familiar with, is we created this volunteer institutional museum category of like very small institutional, volunteer institutions, so that we could offer what we've got to those smallest of places. And that's really been I think a way that we've engaged folks, it's a very inexpensive way for small historical societies, for example, to plug into us. Of course, we recognize that there's still the perception that is sort of out there that NEMA is only for big museums. So the small folks, it's like, oh, it's only for the big museums. And then of course the big museums say, well, NEMA is for smaller museums or whatever. So it's kind of a perception issue where we find that, we're always, trying to say we've got the biggest tent we possibly can, and we're trying to find, ways that we can serve literally the entire museum community in our field. So in answer to your question, we're always interested in trying to, create any avenues for small museums to become involved with us. And part of that translates into working with state associations like the Maine Archives and Museums and Connecticut League of Historic Organizations and Mass History Network, and those kinds of places. We also, this is somewhat of a new initiative, but in conjunction with the other 5 regional museum associations, we recently got an IMLS grant to create something that's called the Digital Empowerment Project. It just launched actually last week, where we created a museum learning hub, and we're creating about a year's worth of online content to help specifically small museums be able to access digital strategies, from collections management to streaming their programs and that kind of thing. So that's happening now, and we're part of that, and we're hopeful that that's going to continue to help us build our engagement with small museums. But it is something that's a very important initiative for us to be able to offer as much service as we can to those folks. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. I'm kind of thinking now that I'm a little older, I've been through a few like presidential changes and the things that happened to the economy after that, things that happened to funding, et cetera. And just curious whether the ideas I have are best now or best perhaps in 2 years or 4 years or something like that. So I was just curious whether there was already momentum, which you've showed me there is, for retention and then earning our members back.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is something that we're hopeful that, as the economy rebounds and as museum hiring rebounds and as, museums come out of their, pandemic shells and so forth, that, we're going to find that what we've done is sort of the NEMA value proposition. We've maintained, our momentum, and thanks to, the NEMA team staff, and also, the board that you're looking at. I mean, we are, collectively the organization, and we've done, I think, a good job in terms of keeping our folks engaged and not just kind of going away and not doing anything. So, whether it's through the town halls or the workshops virtually, and our virtual conference last year, and, upcoming this year, and as we come out of things, starting the process of doing face-to-face meetups and the like, I'm hopeful that, we're going to continue to grow and to engage as many people as we possibly can. So anyway, that I know that's something that you've been very devoted to, Camille, and applaud you for that, and engaging all of those folks. It's important.
Can I say something?
Deborah.
Hi.
Hey, Debbie.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
The tiniest of the tiniest museums. I just want to say that we're still hanging on.
All right.
We're all reaching out to each other. So I talked to a lot of tiny museums. We're doing good. So we reach out to each other. We talk to each other, network, and we have pivoted, doing a lot of connecting with each other, lending each other material, trying to do online kind of things. Just doing what we can do and hoping for the best, and kind of looking at other people's spaces. Looking forward to the spring to do outside kind of stuff. And right now we're trying to work with some historic homes and trying to figure out how to, because we've always been small. So 10 people doesn't pay the rent. So we're looking at outside and looking forward to 2023. and everybody's just, I guess we're trying to catalog what we have, jumping in on, I'm at NEMA, other people are at different conferences, taking in a lot of information and just doing networking so that we can figure out how to put together a coalition. And that's what we're doing, just trying to figure out what the other museums, what the large museums are doing, and trying to figure out how to build. So that's our strategy right now, is just trying to figure out what the larger museums are doing, what the world is going to look like on the other side. But we realize that we are tiny and we're working within the community where we can. So we're hanging on, doing well.
Yeah, good to see you, Debbie. Thank you. And for those of you who don't know, National Black Doll Museum, Mansfield, Massachusetts. Is that where you still are, Mansfield?
We're everywhere.
Right.
Everywhere. So I mean, we're like I said, we're everywhere. We've got we're getting ready to work with historic New England. So we're gonna do an exhibit in Milton with them. We're gonna do something in Dedham, you know, because they have some space, some open space. So we're gonna put some exhibit there. We're gonna put an exhibit over in Stonehill. We're gonna do something with Fuller Crafts. So we're gonna put exhibits everywhere because we have no home, because the museum just couldn't fit the guidelines for COVID.
Yeah.
And so wherever there's space at other museums, we're just putting exhibits there. So we'll be everywhere and doing whatever people need. Because we were there so long, and the exhibits that we already had, we're able to offer them to other museums. So that's where we'll be until we can find another space.
Yeah.
We're everywhere.
Thanks,
So,
Debbie. It's great
I don't
to
want
see
to,
you.
I don't want to run us over, but I do want to comment on a couple things. First of all, Debbie, my organization isn't that big. We did a lot of outdoor events last year. I'd be happy to talk to you about what we learned anytime, because it saved our summer. The second thing is that don't be daunted by the expectations, and I mean, they are real, but nobody does all those things. And we have an amazing staff that does a lot of work and manages the day-to-day operations. And I also want to say, and this is another reason to join the NEMA board, because of what NEMA did, and it's entirely on the staff during the pandemic, this is now the leading museum organization in the country. I mean, they were out there before anybody else, did more programming, attracted memberships from outside of New England, really made a huge impact in the last year. And I think it's impossible for me to really convey how much work the staff did, but they achieved that. And it's really great to be associated with an organization that has that kind of reputation. So I will just say, because it's 11 o'clock, thank you very much to everybody who was part of the program here, and for everybody who attended. Please get in touch with us if we can answer any questions about anything related to museums. And I hope to see you all at an upcoming NEMA event.
So long, everybody.